Thank you, Andres, for always inviting us to be a part of this fantastic program. I'm very excited to be back here this year at the Digital 360 conference. I have some very warm memories from last year, mainly because it's not often that I am able to be speaking on innovations related to the water market. And so today, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be focusing on innovations that are associated specifically with electricity and the water market and how that innovation is evolving over time and has been changing over time, especially over the last 150 years. And so when people think about patents and innovation, sometimes what comes to mind is an independent inventor or an entrepreneur who has gone on to Shark Tank and they've been asked a question about patents or innovation, but they have come up with a solution or a need that has resolved or solved that particular solution. And they've come up with a business plan and other things that are associated with it. But for the discussion that I'm going to be talking about today, we're going to talk about electric and water markets. And when we think about innovation with respect to that, we got to think big. And when I mean big, we got to talk about the grid. And so as we are transitioning to renewables and the innovations associated with renewables, there's one innovation that is critical associated with that. Battery materials, photovoltaic systems, and wind turbine blades are all important. But in order to drive all of this innovation, we got to talk about a stable grid. So let me get into the nitty-gritty of the discussion of modern day technology associated with the electric grid and discuss a little bit about the innovations that are associated with that. Oftentimes when we think about electricity, we think about names like Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. But when we're thinking about the electric grid, one name really comes to mind, and that's Samuel Insull. Insull was the secretary or private secretary to Thomas Edison for 8 years. And after Edison lost the wars to the AC and DC wars, he retired to his inventor's studio in New Jersey. And as a result, Insull was able to kind of step out from behind the shadows of Thomas Edison and take over as the head of Chicago Edison. At this point in time in the 1890s, electricity wasn't really that popular. Unlike oil, gas, and grain, excess electricity could not be stored and used in peak requirements. The infrastructure required to carry out electricity had to be built and maintained at huge costs, and skilled personnel actually had to be trained to be able to work with this invisible and sometimes deadly commodity. At the time, the only way to be able to make a profit was actually to be able to sell electricity plants at luxury estates. And those luxury estates and then the actual plans were an Edison franchise in which they would build, install, and maintain for a price. Really a grid kit, if you think about it. But when Insull arrived in downtown Chicago, he really actually saw a potential business plan and a business opportunity. At that time, there were about 20 or so grids that were actually not being operated by Edison, and they were owned by other individuals. They were put into luxury apartment buildings, and they were put into some of the factories. And as a matter of fact, some of the cities were using an electric grid to be able to run their streetcars. Insull saw an opportunity. Factories at that time were using their mini private grid primarily during the day, but then residents were actually using their grids in the evening. And so each user was not really using the grid 100% of the time. They were only using it part of the time. And so one of the ideas that he had was, instead of having many of those mini grids, he devised a way and an innovation for those grids to be used throughout the entire period, and also to have one large central grid. And so he set up one large utility system with many customers. And with that, during the day, customers, especially primarily manufacturing, use the most system load during the day. And at night, the load mainly came from the residents. And during dawn and dusk, the city would be primarily using a lot of the load with respect to the electricity. But the challenge at the time was really just being able to balance that load. Electric generators, which were steam-powered turbines, work best when it's operated continuously and without stop. And so selling the off-peak power at a discount created a whole new industry and a whole new way of doing business, particularly when the manufacturers were using this. And as a matter of fact, this is when we started to see the shift in which manufacturers were able to start running shifts and running almost 24 hours a day. In 1892, fewer than 5,000 Chicagoans actually had electricity. 21 years later, almost 50,000 Chicagoans had electricity. And then 7 years after that, almost 200,000, which is almost 10% of the population of Chicago, had electricity within their house. Insol's contribution to the grid wasn't just through engineering, but it was actually through business as well as systems. And Insol used actually the three-prong approach that was recorded by Gretchen Bach in the book called The Grid. First, he lured customers in with low pricing and using economics and stories and modern progress to be able to increase both the number of people who they were serving and the amount of electricity. Second, he thought big. Right? He built bigger. He made more efficient power plants, and he built more power plants. And three, he was able to secure long-term, low-interest construction loans. And his business strategy was actually recognized and used throughout the entire country, as many industrialists and monopolists also recognized the significance and the impact that his technology and his business strategy was using. And today, the modern grid technology that we're looking at today was based on the work that Insol has set up. So today, the utility systems that we have today are the same utility systems that we recognize back then that was set up by Insol. But today, electric technology has been shifting over time, and renewables are actually starting to make an entry and starting to be a part of the entire grid system. Traditional electric sources that were based on power plants, things that Insol had built, were powered by coal, gas, and nuclear. But things that we are seeing today, the new trend and the new waves are associated with power that's associated with wind, solar, photovoltaics, as well as batteries. But converting those renewables and being able to use those renewable energies and have them interoperate within the power plants is something that is not simple, and it is quite a challenge. Enter grid-forming inverters. Grid-forming inverters are pieces of electric equipment which range in size from microwaves all the way up to giant shipping containers. My arms are not long enough for that. And they are specially programmed to be able to transition renewables between something that produces and stores power like wind turbines, solar panels, and batteries, and convert them to be able to use them efficiently and associate them with the grid. And this is crucial technology that is able to control the flow of renewable energies and make the grid quick and responsive to be able to mimic the controls from large power plants. And this technology is only beginning to arise, and the transition to technology is only starting. In fact, in case you're wondering, there are actually only 30 patents that have been issued for grid-forming inverters, and 20 of those patents were granted in this last year. And 2 of those patents that have been granted were granted over the summer, and those patents were actually assigned to General Electric Company, the company that was founded and formed by the Edison Company and Thomas Edison himself. So coming full circle, the Edison company has come from small grid kits to large utility scale grids to grid forming inverters, which are based on the backbone and the basis for renewable energy as well as green technologies. So the story I recounted of Edison, Insull, and General Electric has unfolded over the course of 150 years. Or let's think about it another way. Edison's first patent was granted in what we call the 90,000 series. The most recent patents that I just mentioned that was granted to the General Electric company is in the 11 millionth patent series. And so over 150 years, we've looked at almost 11 million patents overall. And specifically, it's 11,625,312 in the 150-year period. That's a lot of patents. And it's a fun way to measure the story of a company and a commodity that has been incentivized through the patent system. So where are we going next and what's coming up next? In technology today, if you're talking to any commodity or any industry, AI is the biggest topic that is emerging out of the entire world. AI is the most popular technology and the most popular and discussed technology in any industry right now. None of us will soon forget the most recent storm a couple of years ago, Storm Uri. And in the aftermath of that particular storm, IEEE looked at the reports that were coming out and stated in the report entitled Operation Security, the Case for Texas. And it revealed that ERCOT identified the need for a reactive power control tool in operations to improve the control and coordination of various reactive devices. And believe it or not, there are AI tools that are working in that particular space right now. Such modeling tools are being developed and refined. And in fact, Utilidata received a patent this last summer, which covers a system that uses AI and machine learning to manage and predict grid components that send a signal to any utility. So think about electric, gas, and water meters. The machine learning system is able to make predictions and recommendations using historical data when there's actually no data available. So think about data that could be available during a pure blackout. And they are able to synchronously and smartly be able to control many grid form inverters where a backup or traditional power plant may not have that information in place. This particular technology is still being developed and is not quite there. And there is a lot of opportunities that are still existing right now when we think about the potential of where this technology is going. So the USPTO is seeking to drive innovation within this particular technology center. So if you are working in this particular area, as most of you probably are, and you have a solution that is specifically tied to climate change, we actually have a climate change mitigation pilot program that will expedite filing for particular patents and processes that either remove greenhouse gases from those already present in the atmosphere, reduce and or prevent additional greenhouse gas emissions, and monitor, track, and verify greenhouse gas emissions. And that particular program will allow you to get patents faster. In addition to that, we recently launched a program called the First Time Filer Expedited Examination Pilot Program. So if this is your first time filing a particular patent and you are interested, and it's not limited actually to particular technologies, just that this is your first time to file a particular patent, this is a great way to fast track your particular patent. And it also lowers the time-based barriers for inventors who might otherwise be unable to participate in the patent system. We are also continuously looking for a number of different ways to break down the barriers to be able to have the patent system benefit all. We know that at the USPTO, if more women more minorities and more children from low-income families are participating in the innovation system, we could potentially quadruple the number of innovations throughout the entire United States. And the USPTO is continuing to drive and provide opportunities for underserved and underrepresented so that they can also participate in this particular program. If you'll see on your tables, for those of you who are actually on in the room, there are a number of different things and a number of different programs that I would like to highly encourage you to participate in. One of them is our Women's Entrepreneurship Program. And in that, we have programs in which we are featuring women and minorities who have successfully gone through the intellectual property system, and they are featured in that, and they talk about their journey and their journey of innovation. We also have a number of different resources that are listed on the flyer that is actually on the table. And I'm going to highlight a couple of those resources. One of the resources that we have is a Patent and Trademark Resource Center. And what that is we have partnerships with libraries throughout the entire country in which we have librarians who have been trained by USPTO personnel, and they're able to answer basic questions of intellectual property. And they are also able to help you search to determine whether a patent or a trademark has already been filed with our office to see if you're eligible to be able to file your own invention with our office as well. The closest patent and trademark resource center to you is actually going to be at UT Austin at the McKinney Engineering Library. There's a librarian there who is able to help support you. We also have a number of clinics at the various law schools throughout the entire country that will help those be able to file patent and trademark applications. In Texas, we have 4 of them. We have one at Baylor Law School, which is probably the closest one here. There's also one in Houston at South Texas. And then there are 2 others at SMU and Texas A&M School of Law out of Fort Worth. They are also available to have students be able to help secure intellectual property rights, patent and trademark applications for you or your clients. Further, and lastly, the USPTO.gov website is a wealth of information. If there are any questions, if you're trying to figure out whether you have intellectual property to be able to protect, you can use our IP identifier to be able to determine that. But we also have a number of free resources, including 1-800 numbers and virtual classes that will be able to help you on your journey through innovation. And so with that, I and the USPTO are looking forward to working with you and continue your journey of innovation. Andres, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to address this crowd. Thank you.
I would love to encourage some questions.
Oh, great presentation. Can you comment on the competitiveness aspect of it in terms of patents filed within the United States compared to outside?
Are you looking for the numbers or the actual process? And so right now, let me give you the numbers coming from China compared to the actual United States. And so the USPTO actually receives probably about 780,000 patent applications every year, and it keeps going up. Actually, no, that's trademark applications. Excuse me, 650,000 patent applications every year, and it goes up by about 1 or 2% every year. Over 50% of the applications that we actually received are not domestic applications, meaning they are applications that are being filed by a foreign entity. Now, the most comparable system right now that from a number standpoint that we're looking at is China. China is coming online fast and furious. As a matter of fact, okay, remember this number, we received 650,000 patent applications. Last year, China received 2 million patent applications in their office as well. And so there are a lot of patents that are being filed within the United States, but also internationally, particularly within China.
You mentioned AI being the new poster child of everybody's interest. What's the patent office doing with that technology for its own use?
So did everyone hear the question with respect to AI and what the patent office is doing? So Right now, there's a couple of different fronts. We've been receiving patent technology that has AI related to it or being used for a period of time right now. The biggest question that is facing not only our office, but offices around the country is, what do you do with technology that is being claimed and being developed completely by AI, 100% with AI? We recently, within the last 2 or 3 years, actually had an application that was submitted by a AI entity named Dabus, who was listed as the inventor and was sent into our office to try to receive a patent application for that. Right now, the law does not support a non-human inventor to be listed as an inventor for a particular technology area. So we ended up denying that particular application. And this recently actually went up through the courts, and the decision was appealed within the courts, but the courts, the Fed Circuit recently agreed with our decision, in which there is that a inventor cannot be an AI. So that's a larger policy question. The only country, in case you're wondering, that registered a application with Dabus listed as the inventor was South Africa. And South Africa is not usually thought of as a place in which there's a lot of patent filings around the world, or leading in patent filings. But the difference between South Africa and with the United States and many of the other countries around the world is that South Africa just simply registers applications. So if you send it in, they will automatically register it for you. There's really no analysis that's associated with that. And so that's probably how the actual application got registered. But AI in general, we're seeing it. We're seeing it in every area. We're seeing it in relation to bio and pharma technology, the tools that they're using there. We're also seeing AI being used in almost every single technology area. And that the question is, at the end of the day, at what point are we going to, A, be accepting technology that is associated 100% by an AI? Or is there a standard that we need to go by, right? What if the AI contributes 50%? Is that too much? Or what if it only contributes 30%? We don't really know that question, and those are things that we're wrestling with right now.
Quick follow-up, Hope. I think the regulations around the infrastructure would specifically ask for buying from American companies, Build America, Buy America, right? The BABA provisions. We know that as technology companies, we share the burden of filing patents and then trying to protect our own patents. What is the USPTO doing to be more vigilant around copycat companies around the world?
Okay, so the question is, what is the USPTO doing with respect to being vigilant on copycats around the world? So the USPTO, we've actually been working a lot with our customers and Border Patrol. We are one of the biggest campaigns that we work with them on is what's called the Stop Fakes campaign. And so what we work with them on a regular basis, that's primarily associated mostly with trademarks, right? Counterfeits that are coming in across the border and stopping that. And so we do work with them on a regular basis, and we're conversing with them on a regular basis on different ways that we can increase our monitoring with respect to that. Internally, within the USPTO, there's a number of things that we are doing to be able to combat that. We actually, believe it or not, are starting to look at AI technology to be able to support some of those things. So, for example, if there are fraudulent applications that are being filed within our office, some of them are on trademarks, and we're actually also starting to see them on the design patent side in particular. We're looking at ways to see if there's a way for us to be able to digitally identify, do some forensic analysis to figure out whether this is a fake coming in or it's actually a true application that is coming in as well. And we're looking at customer data and different trends that are coming in to see if there's any red flags that will give us pause at the end of the day, in which, hey, there's no single person who's able to file 10,000 applications in one day, right? And so we need to try to figure out what we can do and try to take particular action on those particular accounts. So there's a number of different things that we are doing, working with our counterparts who are actually monitoring the border and the flow of fraudulent activity coming across the border, which is Customs and Border Patrol. But we're also doing a number of things in our internal systems so that we can also actively detect some of the fraudulent things that are coming in.
Yes. I'm in renewable energy, and I need international patents.
Mhm.
120 countries.
Yes.
Each country takes me minimum $10,000, translation fees and annual fees. How can the inventors do all those? Any suggestions about USPTO helping inventors?
So the question is surrounding international applications, and you're right. International applications, they are quite expensive, and I'm not gonna lie about that. One of the things that we work with is that we have a number of different treaties that we have negotiated with the various countries. And those treaties enable you to be able to reduce some of those costs that you are currently seeing. And so for patents, we have a treaty called the PCT, which is the Paris Cooperation Treaty, which allows you to file an application within, for example, one country like the United States. And then it allows you to be able to send that application to other countries and other offices. And it allows also some sharing of information. So some review from our office can be also sent to the other offices as well. It reduces some of the translation costs because then you only need to, in most countries, file one single application in one language. And you're able to actually go into that particular country with that particular application. And so it saves some of those costs. Are you using PCT in your filings of your applications right now?
Well, I do exactly what you said. I'm going through Crystal City, Virginia, so I don't have to go to, I'm from Maryland.
Okay.
So I didn't know there's a regional offices, but it's nice to know.
Yes.
But I'm doing exactly what you were saying.
Okay. You're currently going through PCTs right now?
Yes.
Yeah. So unfortunately, right now, the cost structure is what it is. But what I will do is I will bring this feedback back to my leadership and let them know to see if there's anything that we could do from a cost standpoint. In addition to that, we do provide a number of different resources to be able to help you. You are welcome to, if you're able to do some of the upfront work, sometimes that'll reduce at least your attorney's fees at the end of the day. And so happy to connect with you and talk to you about some of those things as well.
Over.
Yes. Hi, Shri.
Hi, Bill. First, thank you for your leadership on working with Governor Abbott's office to declare October IP month in Texas. So that's great. The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board has created this Tech Transfer Council of universities throughout Texas to increase IP coming out of universities. Mm-hmm. I was just curious, how do Texas universities compare with universities from other states across the country in the generation of IP, patent filings or whatever?
That's a really good question. And so the question is, how do Texas universities compare to other states with respect to the generation of intellectual property? In general, Texas competes very, very well, not only on the national scale, but internationally as well. Right now, Texas or Texans are granted the second most number of patents out of any state in the country. California's number one, we're number two. You can guess who's number three? New York, very good. So number three is New York. In a similar vein, from a university standpoint, and y'all are going to have to forgive me because I really only know UT numbers right now, but UT in particular has been ranking fourth worldwide on number of patents that have been granted. And so from a comparison standpoint, you got to believe that because we know that Texans are filing a lot of patents and they continue to file a lot of patents and they receive a lot of patents. And we know that a school like UT is receiving a lot of patents. I think statewide universities are in a really good position currently right now with that. And we actually recently participated in the Dallas Roundtable for that particular higher education cooperation group. And we're very excited about the work that they're going to do. And I'm looking forward to hear the readout in December with respect to that.